Hi everybody, today just a very quick video to have a look at the bomb loadout for the aircraft, and I just want to compare the Tamiya bombs with some aftermarket resin and etched brass bombs from a company called MDC, Model Design and Construction in the UK. There's a link to their website in the video description. So looking at the Tamiya bombs first of all, they're meant to represent 500-pound medium capacity Mark IIIs. We know that they're meant to be Mark IIIs because of the stencil data on the Tamiya decal sheet. We'll have a look at those in a minute. This looks like a Mark 26 or a Type 26 tail with the short tail stay here at the back. These short stays were used primarily for fighter bomber aircraft, which obviously the Mosquito was. And just a word about the terminology medium capacity. Really, that is a term that was used to describe not the overall weight of the bomb, but the charge to weight ratio. So a medium capacity bomb in the RAF had a charge ratio of between 40 and 50% charge to overall weight, versus the older general purpose bombs, which the medium and high capacity bombs replaced towards the middle of the war. The general purpose bombs only had a charge ratio of around about 25% to their overall weight. And they were replaced because the original general purpose bombs had quite a high detonation failure rate of about 10 to 15%. So the new series of medium and high capacity bombs introduced midway through the war were a better proposition. The high capacity bombs had an even higher charge to weight ratio of between 70 and nearly 90%, 88%. And they achieved that by having really thin casings on them. And what happened was that they collapsed on impact. So you couldn't have a delayed fuse on them, unlike the medium capacity bombs, which had a thicker casing and obviously could have delayed fuses on them. So these bombs have got a decent shape. I haven't measured them against published dimensions, but they're a decent shape. They look like the 500-pounders. They've got a relatively thin moulding for the fins and the stay at the back. So you can see it's not too bad at all. And we've got, as we've seen, the photo etch tail fuse, the arming vein on the tail fuse. The slight inaccuracy with them for the bomb that I want to reproduce is that it represents fairly poorly two lifting lugs, so a double lifting lug. And these bombs carried a single lifting lug. The twin lifting lugs were introduced later on in the war as US types came into RAF service, which required twin lifting lugs. So that's not correct for this particular loadout that we're needing for the Mosquito, and I'll talk about that a bit later on. So that's not a bad effort. We also get some decals to fit to the Tamiya bombs with a number of stencils on them. So we've got all sorts of codes on these stencils. So we've got the stencils representing the fact that it's a medium capacity 500-pound Mark III bomb, that it appears to have a pistol number 30. There's a bewildering number of pistols and nose fuses, tail fuses, combinations with the tail arrangements on various bombs. And I'll give you a reference for how you can work out all those combinations as well later on in the video. The stencils also describe the filling dates on them, so 12/1943 and the filling station on them. So all sorts of little details on the stencils for these bombs. We also get the green ring which goes around the just around the what's called the ogive on the nose here, which is representative of a high explosive medium capacity, standard medium capacity bomb, 500 pounder, and it tells us that it's filled with Amatex, which is the explosive compound in the bomb. So these decals would add quite a bit of detail to these bombs. I'm going to decide how much of them to use when I come to actually build them and do the loadout for the Amiens raid. So moving on to the MDC bombs, I've bought 4 of these obviously, and they're relatively cheap really. I think they were just over £2 sterling directly from MDC. And again, the link to the website is in the video description. So if you want to take a look, go over there, and there's quite a range of not just RAF but some USAF and Luftwaffe bombs as well. So it's a good range, and as I said, I found it difficult to find replacement bombs, particularly in 132 scale. So what's in the packet? Well, we really just have the resin parts for the actual bomb body and the separate tail unit. The nice thing about the resin casting for these bombs is that the actual connection stubs are very thin and small, so they're not going to require you to remove a big casting block off the bottom of these parts. You can see how fine the blocks are, and what that means is that you're not going to have to sand the mating surfaces of the tail and the bomb casing itself, which means that it's going to be easy to get those nice and square, which isn't always easy when you're removing resin parts from a casting block. The bomb casing itself, you won't be able to pick it up on the video, it's very, very fine, but there is a casting texture on them, and there are some markings on them for the positioning of the identification rings that were found on RAF bombs. So the type that I've selected, just zooming into this photo etch fret, is obviously the medium capacity 500 pound tail number 26. This is the Mark III, which represents the one in the Tamiya kit. And this has the short tail stay on it. Some nicely detailed and very thin, this is quite thin gauge brass, tail fins here, with some rivet detail on them as well. We also have a choice of tail pistol, or at least the arming vanes for the tail pistol. We get a 17, a 21 and a variation here. I'll be using the one with the twin arming vane on it. We've also got some separate etched tail cone latches which are here. They're moulded into the Tamiya kit, and we have a pair of lifting lugs here which go on separately. They're a lot more defined obviously than the Tamiya ones, the Tamiya equivalents, and that gives us the option to represent either the earlier single lug arrangement, which is what I'm going to be doing, or it gives you the option to fit both of the lugs as I've explained, as they were later on in the war. The last parts that we've got here are the nose vanes for the nose pistol, which is completely missing from the Tamiya kit. You don't get the option of a nose pistol at all on the Tamiya bombs. So we've got this nose pistol here, which is a Type 873, which is very similar to a Type 44 pistol as well. At any rate, the 5-bladed propellers. This part needs to be bent to shape the little fins here to form the shape of the arming vane. So again, that's another nice detail that's absent altogether from the Tamiya kit. So the Tamiya kit assumes 4 times 500-pound medium capacity bombs, so you just build these all identically for the 2 that are loaded into the bomb bay and the 2 on the wing racks. But I've had a look at what was actually carried on the Amiens raid on the 18th of February 1944, and I found some info from a signal, or from the original signal that was issued from number 2 group to 140 airfield, which was where obviously 140 wing was based, and that comprised 487 New Zealand Squadron, 464 Australian Squadron, 21 Squadron RAF, and on the raid Mosquitoes from those 3 squadrons were detailed to bomb the prison, and also an RAF photo reconnaissance Mosquito as well to film the raid, presumably for propaganda purposes. The signal gives all sorts of detail of the routing of the mission out of the base at Hunsdon and the return path to be taken. It details the number of aircraft that were to attack different areas of the prison, and it also details the method of attack of the different aircraft in the 3 squadrons. The interesting thing about the signal is that it details the bomb loadout for the Mosquitoes on the raid as being 2 500-pound medium capacity bombs, so basically what we've got in the kit and in the MDC aftermarket bombs, but also that each aircraft would carry 2 500-pound semi-armour piercing bombs. And that presumably was to help with demolishing the both the outside walls and the walls of the main prison blocks as well. Now, the difference between a semi-armour piercing bomb and the standard type bomb, they were very similar in appearance, except for the fact that there wasn't a nose fuse or a nose pistol on a semi-armour piercing bomb. And also the colour banding on the identification bands was different. On the semi-armour piercing bomb, we had a white ring as well on the nose, in addition to the red and green rings that were present on the standard type bomb. So we can represent this semi-armour piercing bomb from the MDC, and also you could get away, I think, with the Tamiya bombs as well, providing that you did away with the decals and didn't just use the decals straight from the Tamiya kit. You'd obviously need to modify them, as I'm going to do with the MDC bombs. But the other difficulty with knowing that we've got a loadout of semi-armour piercing and medium capacity bombs on the aircraft is knowing how they were loaded, whether they were loaded on the wing racks or into the bomb bay. And there's no certainty about that, but I do have a clue in a really good photograph that's fairly commonly available on the internet of some bomb loading going on at Hunsdon, which is obviously where the wing was based. And that gives us several clues about getting the bomb load fairly accurate on the model. So the first thing it shows is the single lifting lug. You can see that quite clearly on this photograph. You can see that there's no nose fuse on the bombs that are being loaded onto the wing rack here on this Mosquito. So it's likely that they were semi-armour piercing, because the 2 others on the trolley below, at the back of the trolley, do have nose fuses on them. And so I'm assuming that the loadout here represents a mixed loadout of semi-armour piercing and medium capacity, and that the 2 at the back of the bomb trolley there are destined to go in the bomb bay. So that's how I'm going to represent the loadout on my particular model. The other interesting thing in this photograph is the really dirty appearance of the bomb bodies as opposed to the cleaner tail units. And that's because the bomb bodies themselves were kept separate from the tail units in the ammunition dumps. And the bomb bodies were just rolled out, presumably across mud and dirt and grass, to be put onto the trolleys. And the tail units were kept separate and assembled onto the bomb body at a later time. So that explains why in a lot of photographs you can see the sort of two-tone appearance of British bombs, and that's because of the way that they were put together before loading onto the aircraft. So you can't see really on this particular photograph and in a lot of other ones, you can't identify the identification bands or the stencils. They're lost under all the dirt and grime. So for that reason, I'm not going to get too hung up about the stencils that are provided in the Tamiya kit or getting the identification rings exactly perfect. I will try and represent them, but I'm not going to get too hung up about them, because the bomb bodies particularly will get a fairly heavy coating of dirt and grime and mud on them. So that's how I'll be representing the loadout on the model. I'm looking forward to putting these MDC bombs together. I'll be doing that in a future episode, but I'll be delaying loading them onto the aircraft until later on in the build, probably towards the end of the build, particularly the bombs that are going to be going on the wing racks, because obviously it'd be easy to knock those off. So as I said, that'll be coming up in a future episode. The next video in the main playlist will be coming up on Friday. And for the rest of this week, I'm going to be busy masking off the rest of the airframe, ready for the first coats of paint. So that's it for this one. Just a quick video just to update you on where I am with the ordnance. So as I said, I'll leave you the references that I've found really useful for understanding the loadouts and the different types of combinations of bombs, tails, fuses, pistols, etc. Used on RAF bombs. It's a really complicated subject, and hopefully if you want to know a bit more about it, that reference will be useful for you. They're down at the bottom of the page, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.